Hi, so I'm Stuart Robb. I'm from our UK practice. Some of you may have had the opportunity to see me yesterday. And we're going to be talking a little bit about ERP planning today. I kind of tried to consolidate this this title a little bit, so I've just called it sort of leading practice in transformations. We'll cover a little bit about planning. We'll cover a little bit about artifacts. And hopefully you'll find it interesting. And then afterwards we can have a look at the chat and you can ask me lots of questions. Now, this actual is a very small cut of a module in our training course. We do ERP training right from vision through to implementation delivery. This particular module, which is the planning module, is about 2 days. Obviously, I haven't got 2 days to bore you to death with ERP planning, so we'll be just doing a little slice, a little vignette, I guess, of ERP planning, but hopefully it'll give you a good sight of how we work and what we do. As I said, if you've got any questions and they don't take 1.8 days to go through, then we can pick those up. All right, let's crack on. So I've got to share my screen, which should mean that if I do that button and click on that and click share and then click the thing that says you are close to close a message and a whole load of other actions, you should now be seeing my screen shared, which it looks like you are. So that's fantastic. I don't quite know why that has moved itself right up there. So if we can just move that out of the way. And here we go. So is this going to work today? Because it didn't work yesterday. No, it's not. Excellent. Let's try again. Let's just do page down. Okay. And is that going to? Oh, I don't know what it is. All right, let's try and click on that. Okay. And if I tell you, oops, that I was actually still rendering this off of Adobe After Effects 5 minutes ago before this meeting started. It's just not quite there yet, but we're getting close. Okay. And for those of you who are wondering what TSI is, it's actually Third Stage Consulting International. So we're going to talk about leading. It's all right, I'm hearing a bit of background noise, so that's all right. We're going to talk about leading practice in digital transformations. As I said, hopefully you'll find it interesting. I just need to check what time I started, so we'll call that 17:20, and we'll crack on. So I guess we're going to talk a lot in the next few days about ERP challenges and why they fail so often. That's very strange. Why they fail so often. I have a philosophy that really the reason that they fail so often is because they're not set up right at the beginning. And that means that companies haven't done their homework. They haven't finished the course before they start to take the exam. And as a result, when they get into the real meat of the activities, it all starts to get away from them. So we strongly advise in third stage, you do the homework and then you sit the exam. And what does the homework mean? Well, the homework means, have you got everything, all your prerequisites sorted out? Do you know how clean your data is? Have you got a plan that everybody believes in? Have you got a signed off project charter? Because trying to do those all after you've started usually means that you're already on the back foot. You haven't properly mobilized. So having got the go ahead from the board, obviously organizations become very keen to just get going and start configuring. But really the time spent here is going to save so much time and effort later on as you go through the project. And the real aim of this is to mitigate any risk of delay or cost overrun. So the more work you do thinking about this now, I think the easier you're going to find it to have a successful outcome. So there's a whole list of goals, and I mean, I call them program management goals. And truthfully, this is true of any large business or technology transformation. It doesn't have to be ERP, it doesn't have to be HCM, or it doesn't have to be CRM. But we come across so often in our daily lives clients that just haven't got all of these dimensions really crystal clear in their mind. And probably one of the most common is having not got that really crisp, crystal clarity on all of the scope. In fact, we're working with a client at the moment, and we are doing a vendor selection, and actually we don't still have the landscape of scope as to what this transformation is going to be. So we don't know what systems are going to be replaced. We don't know what departments are actually in or out of scope. And all of those things create a fog. I used to call it a mist. Now I just call it a fog of confusion that the vendors will come along and ask the question, right, well, you know, what's your technical scope? What's your organizational scope? And then there'll be a huge rush to try and answer the question without having really had the opportunity to think that through. And so the whole thing starts badly and gets gradually worse. Then the second thing is really understanding the phasing of the program as well. Again, early on, you want to be thinking about what you're trying to implement and in what sequence it goes, and whether or not you want to deploy it everywhere, or whether or not you want to deploy it by region or by product or by user group or whatever it is. But again, it's quite common that that question is left, you know, quite a long way down the track, especially after the SI is already engaged. And the SI loves that, because what it allows the SI to do is to spin while you spin on the question, and of course their meter is still running, so they're getting the bucks in, and you know, you're not right there to answer those questions, and so you know, that's helping their profit margin very nicely. Thank you very much. So having clarity, what's being delivered, and again, yes, okay, it's NetSuite or it's Dynamics or whatever it is, but what does that impact does that have on the target operating model? So what impact does it have on processes? What impact does it have on people? Are you having to upskill people? Are you having to put in a severance program? You know, all of those things are better worked out up front. It's absolutely fine to have advisors, but having a big SIT ready to start configuration before you've got all of these things nailed down is a very, very expensive way of paying the SI salary. The third thing is really having that clarity around what skills should be on site at any point in time. Now, I obviously with COVID, we don't have on site anymore, but it's extraordinary how often there's a disconnect between the program team and what the SI are actually doing. And in fact, I was on one engagement, I was doing an assurance, and somebody turned up and they spoke to the SI's program manager, and they sat down and they got their laptop out and they started doing some work, and that was all very nice. And then about half an hour later, I said to the program director, "Who's that?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I went, well, should we find out? So we went to the program manager from the SI and we said, "Who's this one?" And the SI said, "Oh, he's just come on to help the enterprise architecture team do a little bit of blah, 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 blah." And we went, "Oh, okay." Well, actually, I went, "Oh, okay. So you're doing that for no money? You're doing that for free?" And he went, "No." And I went, "Oh, so we're paying for it then?" And he went, "Well, yes." And I went, "Okay, so where was the agreement? Where did we agree that we were getting this additional resource to help out. And then there was a bit of erring and umming. And I said, well, you know, the simple answer is, can you show us the change order that we've signed that said, you know, you're adding an additional resource for us? Now, extraordinarily, that is uncommon. And clients simply don't control the SI tightly enough to stop that kind of nonsense happening. And even when you get the bill at the end of the month, you know, it's a bill produced out of NetSuite Opener. It's got hundreds of names on it. It's got dozens of hours. It's pretty hard to work out what all these people are doing. But more important, it's pretty hard. It's almost impossible to work out what they're actually delivering. And in fact, one of the things that we do recommend is that when any resource is working on the client site, they record in their SI timesheets the deliverable they're working on. Now, SIs hate that, and some of them will say they can't do it. That's a lie. They all can, but they don't want to, because the last thing they want you to be able to do is to see who is delivering what and how much time they're spending on it. They like that fog of confusion. So the fourth thing is, again, having unambiguous quality thresholds. And a quality plan doesn't have to be a 100-page document. It can be a 1-page document, as long as everybody knows how quality is being measured. Now, you can say, well, it's very hard to measure the quality of a document. And, well, it is very subjective. That's true, but it's not hard to measure, because you can secure the services of an external advisor to look at the quality of the output and to say, yes, that meets industry standard practice, or it meets industry advanced practice, or industry leading practice, depending on, you know, what threshold you're trying to meet, or it doesn't meet what we would ordinarily expect a deliverable of that nature to look like. And therefore, our recommendation to you is to ask the supplier to fix it in these ways. Now, that's what good assurance is about. That's the meat and potatoes of good assurance. But nonetheless, too many deliverables go around too many people inside organizations. Nobody really knows who is the kind of the point person for it. And a significant amount of the time, actually, the deliverable is never signed off. And it's only in the better governed programs I can go to the PMO, the head of the PMO, and I said, get me your folder out with all of the deliverables with the wet signatures on. Now, I'm a great believer in wet signature, and the reason I'm a great believer in it is because if you are signing something for real, you think about what you are signing. If you are signing something off an email, you'll just say, yeah, it's all right, yeah, good enough, and move on. But a wet signature is a level of commitment that goes up. And even in these times, you know, for key artifacts, we circulate the deliverable with an acceptance out and get it mailed, postage mailed back to make sure that everybody is absolutely happy and comfortable. But again, you know, the number of times that I go into an organization and say, well, what quality thresholds have you got for the scripting in the ERP? And they say none. Okay, that could be okay, but did you think about it? Did you even ask the question? So the next point is about the schedule. And it's astonishing to me how often the schedule is not believable. So people will, you know, work away and they'll be creating a plan and they'll be doing this, that, and the other, and an edict will come down on high. This has to meet this, that, and the other business event, milestone, whatever, and it needs to be done in 6 months. And everybody will go, 6 months. And then they'll go, oh, if we do that, and this, and that, and this, and that, and this, and that, oh yeah, we can just about squeeze in. And nobody actually believes it. Everybody thinks it's a train crash, But they will still go back to the execs and say, well, yeah, we think we found a way to do it, when actually what they should be saying is, if you sign up for this, you're signing up to kill yourself, because it can't be done. And extraordinary. Especially a plan with no slack, with no variance, with no slack, with no variance measurements or anything like that, is just signing up for disaster straight away. Now, the other thing that we'll come back to on the plan is that very rarely do people manage these programs at the right level of detail. And because they don't manage them at the right level of detail, they get a variable outcome, because they're either too much in the weeds, or they're managing at such a high level of detail, they've disaggregated all of their accountability for the day-to-day management of the project to the SI, and the SIs actually pretty rarely tell you the truth, or at least tell you the accurate truth about what's going on in the program. They'll tell you as much as they think you need to know. Now, for those of you who think I'm being unfair on SIs, trust me, I have worked for them. I worked for Accenture, or Anderson Consulting, actually. I worked for Ernst & Young. I worked for Capgemini, and they're all sharks in the same swimming pool. So the next point, full financials, and it's cash flow, and it's risk analysis on the cash flow as well. Again, it's all very well saying it's a $10 million program, it's a $100 million program, but unless you understand the outflow of cash and the sequence, and you've agreed that with finance, I've had one program in my career that actually just ran out of cash because they hadn't modeled that cash flow properly. And also having a sensitivity and a variance analysis on each stage of the program. You know at the beginning of a program that it's going to be a massive variance, because there's thousands of things more that you don't know than you do, and that variance will improve over time. And so you should start with a big variance at the beginning and reduce that as you go through each stage gate, and the certainty becomes higher. External dependencies, again, a lot of programs go on without really understanding the landscape of what's going on around the organization and in the ecosystem of change. A classic one is a bank that tries to deploy a new CRM technology, and it's trying to deploy a new marketing technology at the same time. The two organizations haven't spoken to each other, and they both crash into each other. So tools and techniques like change heat maps are useful if you've got an enterprise portfolio management office that's managing all of that stuff. That's really good. We love that. But if you're not keeping sight of what's going on out in the wider world, you're likely to be lining yourself up for trouble. And then the last one on this slide is around risk management. Now, lots of project managers are very keen on RAID logs. And they can show me their RAID log, and it's got 3,500 risks in it. That's really, really good. And you think to yourself, oh dear, because no one can manage or accommodate 3,500 risks. And frankly, for a program manager, that is pointless. And I usually measure the effectiveness of a program manager or a senior leader, program director, workstream leader, whatever, on whether they can tell me off the top of their head what the top 5 risks, the top 5 issues, and the date, and the next 2 or 3 key milestone dates. If they can tell me those 3 things, usually they've got a reasonably good grip on what they're doing. If they're trying to manage, risk number 672, they're operating at the wrong level of detail. They are almost certainly, in a large ERP program, going to fail. ERPs and CRMs and HCMs, particularly in larger SMEs and Fortune 100s, are not projects. They are very, very large undertakings, and you need considerable clout and expertise, gravitas, to be able to deliver them. And it becomes difficult because you want to support colleagues, but there are some colleagues that simply can't make that transition. And if you don't have strength across your entire work stream management team, there's no question the wheels are going to come off it. So what are we trying to control? We're trying to control a lot of things that don't like being controlled. Okay, we're trying to control the scope, we're trying to control the cost, we're trying to control the time, and we're trying to control the quality. And those are made up of resources, method, and deliverables. I don't know what's happened to deliverables, it's gone missing, apologies. And because we're trying to manage those dimensions, it's